Hi, and welcome to episode 85 of the Dinner Sisters podcast. We're two sisters taking on the nightly challenge of dinner. I'm Kate Schultz, living and working in Rhode Island. I'm a passionate cook and recipe collector, always thinking about my next meal.
And I'm Betsy Wallace. I live, work, and raise a family in Atlanta, Georgia. I love dinner time, but can always use help planning and cooking. For my family of 5, I've got 3 kids. They are 5, 7, and 9, soon to be 10.
I can't believe it. It's crazy. Our goal with this podcast, we want to cook a little better, learn a little bit about food, and most importantly, figure out what the heck to have for dinner. And here's how this works. Like every week on the podcast, we have 3 recipes that we cooked and reviewed from popular food blogs, internet chefs, like anywhere I could find a recipe. We have all the recipes, tips, things we talk about, the smorgasbord, and a shopping list just for you on our website at dinnersisters.com. You can also get them sent directly to your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter if you'd like to preview the recipes before listening. I write it myself just for you all, so you get it delivered. Usually comes like Monday morning.
You make it sound like some snail mail, Kate.
I know. I sometimes put fun gifts on there too, Betsy.
Mm-hmm.
It's very...
So you're hip with the kids.
I'm hip with the kids.
All right, Kate. So this week's recipes are Creamy Paprika Pork from Taste of Home, Homemade Chicken Yakisoba from Budget Bytes, and roasted cauliflower and lentil tacos with Creamy Chipotle Sauce from Cookie and Kate.
Yeah, that last one's a long one.
Yeah.
Tell you that much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Alrighty. We have all been there. Whether you're saving up for something fun, paying down some credit cards, or just generally trying to be thrifty, tightening up your food budget can sometimes be like a fairly easy way to cut expenses. Like it's a good first step, right? Mm-hmm. And we have 3 recipes this week that could help you do just that while also eating some pretty delicious dinners. And I do want to add, food insecurity, not being able to afford food, is a real thing for people, and having enough to eat can be a real problem for some folks. This episode isn't going to address those issues, and we certainly don't take those problems lightly, but we did want to talk about maybe some recipes to help you save a little cash if that's the place where you are. We are going to talk a little bit more about those issues in the smorgasbord today, actually, so we'll get there.
Yeah, Kate. I know every time we're looking at our budget and we're like, oh, God, it's most of the time the first discussion is, well, the grocery budget or the eating out budget.
Right.
That's just like a pretty flexible thing for most people. Or a room where, maybe there's a little wiggle room in there. So we found some great bloggers and resources and that are just really specifically working in this area, which is making delicious, affordable recipes to make at home. And I'm excited to dive in because we can all use a few more of these.
Mm-hmm. Our first recipe this week is Creamy Paprika Pork from Taste of Home. I thought this might be a great recipe since it uses ingredients that are typical pantry items and a cut of meat that goes on sale all the time, which is a pork tenderloin. I feel like you can either get them Aldi's real super cheap or Costco, I feel like always has pork tenderloins. I don't go to Costco a lot, but I hear of this. In any case, it's a pretty simple meal. To make it, you cut up a 1-pound pork tenderloin into cubes. Toss those cubes in a mix of flour, a ton of paprika, 4 tablespoons of it, salt and pepper. You heat some butter in a large skillet and you brown the pork on all sides. This goes super quick because they're 1-inch cubes, right? Meanwhile, you should boil some egg noodles up. And again, that doesn't take that much time. Egg noodles cook fairly quickly. And once the pork is browned, add the cream and loosen up any brown bits from the pan. You kind of bring the cream to a boil to let it thicken, and the pork should be cooked through at this point. You serve it with the egg noodles, and you're done. Betsy, how did everyone like this?
We really liked this. So
nice.
Yeah. I used smoked paprika because that's what I had in my pantry. That was delicious. I was actually surprised, Kate, with that 4 tablespoons or teaspoons, was it?
It's tablespoons.
It's tablespoons.
It's full tablespoons, yeah.
Of paprika, and it was, I think, only to 1. It was like a 4-to-1 paprika to flour on this. So this stuff was
you almost toss it. Yeah.
But it was just, that flavor's so good with the pork. I really was like, oh, this is just delicious. And I don't know. I guess I don't make cream sauces like that very often, which is maybe an okay thing. But that was super easy. I was just like, oh, all we have to do is dump the cream in here and then let it cook down for 5 minutes. I'm sort of happy I didn't know this was a thing before because I was maybe
I didn't know. Might be good for my heart that I didn't know I could reduce cream into a sauce. You know, I get that.
And this sauce like takes on that nice paprika flavor. And I thought my pork tenderloin was super juicy and like not overcooked. I think too, just because it goes so fast. I mean, it's like 4 or 5 minutes to brown the paprika pork and then like 5 or 6 minutes to reduce that cream and then you're done. I mean, I can't explain how simple and fast this was.
It really was. You know, I was honestly surprised how good this smelled when it was cooking. I was like, oh, I guess I just don't think of paprika as a very like as something that's used as a seasoning in that way. And I did like a combo. So I have, like many people in their pantries, I have both hot, sweet, and then a smoked paprika.
Yeah. Not surprised at this.
No one here is surprised. Okay. So I did 1 tablespoon of hot, 2 tablespoons of sweet, and 1 tablespoon smoked. So if you happen to have a variety of paprikas in your house, you can do that. I mean, mix and match. The hot kind of added a little bit of kick, which was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was comfort food, wasn't it? Like pork, cream sauce, egg noodles.
Yes. I also love an egg noodle.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it could use a little veg on the side, you know, to kind of keep things a little more balanced. I mean, if you're going for simple, I would do this with like a steamed bag of veggies.
Yeah.
Like, don't make anything more complicated. Did you do anything on the side?
I did. I made a kale salad, which is one that my kids really like, which is I just use the chopped kale in the bag, and then I cut up a cucumber and toss it with some oil and vinegar and some dried cranberries, Kate. And that's their favorite kale salad. So that's what I made on the side.
I mean, can't hate on a dried cranberry.
No, they sure can't. That's like their favorite salad because it's got like little bits of sweetness in there.
Yeah, I get
exactly.
that. I get that.
But it was a good, just kind of was a good complement to that richness of the creamy pork.
Yeah, so I think this is definitely something to have as a recipe when pork tenderloin goes on sale. Keep it in your freezer. Egg noodles are wicked cheap. And cream, I mean, that's probably the priciest of all ingredients. And I feel like people buy paprika in bulk anyway. I mean, you should. You know, it comes in a big can.
Yeah, mine's in a can too. And I don't use it enough where I thought, oh, this is a good recipe to kind of use this up a little bit too, you know?
Right, before it like goes a little stale. Yeah. So for me, this is like a high 4 to 5. I definitely make this again next time I see pork tenderloin on sale. How about you?
I'm giving this a 5 out of 5.
Oh.
I just thought everyone loved it. I cannot, again, emphasize how quick and easy this was. And maybe it was just my revelation with like, you can pour cream in a pan and it makes a sauce.
Right.
But I just really liked it, and I like that paprika. And I usually get like 2, you know, like the 2-pack of pork tenderloins that are together. It's like you get 2 of them at once. So I likely will be making this again.
Nice.
All right, so our second recipe today is homemade chicken yakisoba from Budget Bytes.
I had to include a recipe from Budget Bytes. We've featured her recipes before, and a lot of that reason is that she manages to create interesting, really solid recipes without breaking the bank. And she also does this thing where you kind of see how much she prices them out, the ingredients, which I think is really nice. If you're really trying to count your pennies, she's a great site to look at. And this recipe looked kind of fun. I mean, you and I always love a noodle recipe. I love a noodle recipe in my house. So I was like, okay. And it's also full of veggies, which I love. So to make it, you cut a chicken breast into strips and saute it in a pan with a bit of fresh garlic. Pop that out of the pan so you can saute up your veggies, which is half a head of garlic that's been shredded, grated carrots, a thinly sliced onion, and a small crown of broccoli chopped up. You let all the vegetables wilt and cook, and then you add the chicken back in. And while the veggies are cooking, and you get the noodles going. So you cook 2 packs of ramen noodles without the seasoning packets. Kind of like as if they're just plain noodles, you know? And then when the vegetables are done, you add your simmer sauce of ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, soy sauce, sriracha, and sugar. So it's like got this sweet hot thing going on. And then you add in your chicken, let it simmer until warm, and then add in your noodles, and you just toss everything together until it's hot. Betsy, this was like a huge bowl of noodles. Mm-hmm. How did everyone like it?
We, again, really liked this one. We were very happy with it. Yeah. And I liked that sauce, that kind of like ketchup, Worcestershire soy sauce. And that's also very pantry friendly. I was happy to see those ingredients were just things I had and could pull out, which was really nice. So, when you kind of walked through it, it felt like this recipe might have a bunch of steps, but it actually came together really quickly for me. I thought this one.
It did. Yeah. It definitely did. I think the thing that took the most time was like shredding the cabbage, which if I had bought shredded cabbage would have been no problem.
Yeah, and you probably could use one of those, like if you had like a cabbage and carrot mix, one of those salad mixes. You might be able to just kind of like throw that all in here. I actually only had cabbage when I made this. I hadn't done the grocery shopping for this week yet, but I had chicken and I had cabbage in my fridge. And I thought, you know what? In the spirit of budget week, I'm going to use that and great. Do it. And I guess I had onions too. So ours was just the cabbage, the chicken, and the onions and the sauce and the noodles. And we were just really happy with that. I mean,
nice.
I think that just goes to show that this is sort of a flexible recipe, and it was delicious. And also, like, cabbage goes a long way. It's cheap.
Sure does.
And half a head of cabbage was already kind of filling my pan up. I mean...
Oh, yeah, the half a head of cabbage. And I even picked a smaller head of cabbage, and I was like, oh, boy. But it all cooks down, and in the end, it's fine. It kind of like, folds into the noodles really well. I think you're right. I think I was also like, speaking of like bagged cabbage kind of things, there's like sometimes at Whole Foods, I'll see like broccoli slaw. So I think that would be good. Just get like one bag of broccoli slaw and throw it in there with some shredded carrots. I mean, I think you could really turn this into a very pantry, like bottom bin of the vegetable drawer.
Yes.
Kind of recipe. You know, in a good way. In a good way.
And I think that sauce just makes it seem like you really, made something.
Yeah, you're not just like throwing some weird stir fry together and hoping it works.
Exactly. Which is what I would do prior to the podcast. That was my go-to situation. I was like, do I have 75% of these ingredients and like 3 out of the 7 ingredients for the sauce? I will make this recipe. And everything tasted horrible. And I thought I was like a bad cook, but actually I was just not actually making anything correctly.
Right.
So if you're doing that, like
lessons
I totally
learned.
Get it. Yeah. Lessons learned. This is like, if you make the sauce as directed, then you can be a little flexible with your vegetables.
Exactly.
I'm just learning what I can flex and what I should not flex.
I know. Well, lessons learned right over time. My lesson learned was a reminder that ramen noodles don't take that long to cook.
Oh.
I mean, I can't remember the last time I made ramen noodles. Look, I've got nothing against them. They just don't like fit into my diet. But they're quick. If you don't make them as often, you're more like me, you don't make them very often, they can overcook super quickly.
Yeah.
I wasn't watching them. Like, they would literally take 2 minutes to cook. So you just pull them right out and you're good to go. This also reheated pretty well. I took this into lunch. James is traveling this week. And so I have a bunch of food in the house for that, and or last week. And so I use that. So anyway, overall, really like this. High 4 to 5 for me. How about you?
Yeah, I'm also a high 4 out of 5 on this one. I really liked it.
Nice.
Okay, Kate, last recipe today, roasted cauliflower and lentil tacos with creamy chipotle sauce by Cookie and Kate.
So a lot of budget-minded folks will tell you to reduce your meat consumption if you're looking to cut the grocery budget, because meat can be expensive. And we did need a veggie recipe on this episode, so here we are. But I also wanted it to be fun, right? I didn't want to just be like, and here's your plain beans with brown rice recipe. Boo to that, right? Tacos are always fun, so here we are. Your filling is kind of 2 things for the rest of this recipe. It's a roasted cauliflower, which you just do in a hot oven with olive oil and salt. When you break apart a large head of cauliflower and you toss it in oil and you just put it on your half-sheet pan and go. And while that's going, you can make your lentils, which is sauteing some garlic and onion until translucent. You add in some tomato paste, chili powder, and cumin. You kind of bloom the spices a bit, and then you add the brown lentils and water. Simmer it till soft, and then drain off any extra water, because you're going to be putting these in tacos, so you don't want to be like watery, right? And the sauce on top is chipotle pepper sauce, mayonnaise, and lime juice just mixed together. That's it. And to serve, you just pile the cauliflowers and lentils into the corn tortilla, drizzle with the sauce. I am dying to know how your family liked this, Betsy.
Well, you're not going to find out because I chickened out and I told you I was going to make them for dinner. And then I was like, I cannot deal with this week. And so I made them for lunch for myself.
I mean, fair enough.
Sometimes
this can be a big ask.
Sometimes I just can't handle a big to-do at dinner. And they could have liked it. I mean, I don't know.
The commentary, they can be brutal.
Yeah, and sometimes I just don't want to hear it. And so I just made them for myself. And I will say, every time I make lentils, I am reminded how great they are. And I just am like, more lentils in my life.
I had the same reaction. I was like, why am I not making lentils all the time? They are delicious.
But then I know you and I have had this talk before, though. And then you're like, I'm going to make lentils all week. And then your stomach
yes.
gradually adjust to the lentils.
Yeah, it's a lot of fiber.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I also think I want to make lentils all the time. And then by the day 6 of the lentil soup I made, the huge vat of lentil soup, you don't actually want that many lentils.
I know. We both need like a gentle ramp up of the lentils in our life.
Don't go full throttle on the lentils.
Yes. I don't know what that is. I do the same thing. It's like,
very compulsive about lentils.
Yes.
Who knew? Who knows?
So the flavors I thought were delicious. I love the roasted cauliflower. Kate, we've talked about this before. Any of those mayo-based sauces? Yes, please.
I love how you finally saw the light about sauces, because I know we talked about this, like, especially in the early podcast, you're like, I made the sauce, but on protest. Or...
Well, yeah, because I was always like, gosh darn it, and then they're going to make me make a sauce here. And I would be angry
it's like one more step.
Recipe developer, because I'm like, can we not just be done with this recipe now? But then I realized if I take the extra 10 minutes to make the sauce, I have a much better dinner.
And a lot of those sauces keep, right? So you make the mayonnaise sauce, and if everyone doesn't eat it and you're just making it for yourself for lunch, then it's just in the fridge, and then you just pull it out, so I've been doing is I bring it into work. Sometimes I do bring the tortillas either time, because I don't know, eating a taco at your work work is weird. I don't know, it's too messy. You know,
and also it feels like the same concept of bringing your tiny cast iron grill down to or your tiny cast
what
iron
are you
the grill.
What are you trying to say, Betsy?
Don't be a fussy person, Kate. Try to be normal. I'm just kidding.
I mean, I feel like I get about 75%. Even I know bringing in tacos is a step too far. So but I've been bringing it to lunch, and then having the little sauce on the side makes it this not sad desk lunch of just cauliflower and lentils in a bowl, right? And it's actually a sauce. As far as how this went, I thought, like you said, the taste was great. The lentils were really flavorful. I ended up doing the lentils in the Instant Pot, which was
you
fantastic.
told me that, so then I did it also.
Yeah, which was great. Make sure you salt your lentils, like we've talked about in previous recipes, like beans, potatoes, root vegetables. If you don't salt them, they don't taste great, and lentils do need the salt, so make sure you do that. Again, fan of the lentil. This is a really high 4 out of 5 for me. I like this recipe a lot.
Yeah, me too, Kate. All of these recipes were really great this week. I'm also giving this one a 4 out of 5. And I liked this kind of the same way. I have leftovers, obviously. I just made this today. So I think I'll be eating it, but probably in the same way with just the bowl, a bowl and then some sauce over the top. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah, nice and easy. So wrapping it up this week, I have to say, it was a bit of a tough one for me. I think all the rest of these recipes are really good. But overall winner had to have been the tacos. I mean, I kind of got into this whole eating a delicious, healthy, and kind of frugal meal. So that was my winner.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to go with the creamy pork just because.
Fair enough.
Right? It was just delicious. It was just delicious. I have to go with it. I love that recipe. So, yeah.
Awesome. If any of these recipes sound good to you, make sure to check out our show notes and grocery list at dinnersisters.com. There you'll find links to all the recipes, any tips or techniques we discussed. If you'd like to chat more with us, you can always ask to join our Dinner Sisters Facebook group. We are at Dinner Sisters Podcast. You just type that in and you can find us.
All right, Kate, before we head to the smorgasbord, a break. All right, so what is up in the smorgasbord today, Kate? What do we have?
So first, I actually wanted to talk about an article that does deal with food, but also deals with budgets and what it's like online. It's by one of my favorite authors and writers. Her name is Shauna Ahern. I think that's how you pronounce her name. You and I both read this, and she has been long time one of my favorite food writers and bloggers. She has had a very successful food blog called Gluten Free Girl. I'm not gluten free, but I kept going back to read it because her writing is so good. You know, and I was just such a fan of hers. Over the years, she's gone from being a very successful blogger. She was a recipe developer. She wrote a book. She had her own line of gluten-free flours for a while. She was had a newsletter going. So she's a person who online appears to be very successful at this kind of work, right? And always had to showcase this beautiful food that was very wholesome and also gluten-free. Now she works at Chef Steps in Seattle. She just released a book called Enough, which I can't wait to read. Haven't read it yet. It's not food-centric per se, but talks a lot about her life and how she made her decisions. And as part of her book release, she wrote an article for The Guardian titled, Online, No One Knows You're Poor, which I thought was fascinating. So, it gave all that background a little bit to say, here's a person who had this online presence of being a food person, having, these fantastic meals, her beautiful family. And she writes in the article how at one point she and her husband looked at each other and they had $80 in the bank and didn't know how they're going to buy groceries. And I thought it was just fascinating to see this idea that food and food security is not, you don't know who those people might be. It might be you, it might be myself, it might be anyone that you know. And how that can be such a difficult thing to deal with, right, in terms of identity.
Yeah, I also thought it was so interesting, too. She writes in the article about how she gets a job at a grocery store in the town that she's living in. And one of the things I thought was so interesting was that she said when she was bagging people's groceries, she was noticing what people were actually making for dinner and how people were budgeting and who seemed to have a list and who seemed to be buying exactly what they were going to make for the week, and how she noticed that maybe not people that were coming through the grocery store were not buying the things for her recipes that were written with laundry lists of ingredients.
All organic hemp milk, and those kinds of things.
And it was just a really eye-opening experience to just kind of be there at the grocery store with real people looking at what's going in everyone's bags and just kind of having a newfound respect for just the many different lives we lead. And just an appreciation for that and for helping people cook in a way that's very accessible.
Definitely.
Which I appreciate and is something that I really admired. And I loved this article. I thought it was just a really interesting look at her situation specifically, which is always kind of interesting.
Right.
And kind of a larger commentary about the food blogosphere, which is something we spend a lot of time on recently because we're looking up recipes for all of this, for this stuff all of the time. And just to, take everything with a grain of salt, I think. And Kate, our sister Mary, sent us a great downloadable cookbook a while back, but it really works with this episode. And it's written by a woman named Leanne Brown. She's the author of a book called Good and Cheap, a cookbook for people with very tight budgets. Particularly, she works on this for people with SNAP and food stamp benefits. So it's got great recipes. She did this great recipe development for this. The PDF is free. I think everything in there, she said, it's like how to eat healthy and great on $4 a day. So that's kind of the catch.
Wow.
Thing. So it's a free PDF you can download. It's also translated into Spanish. It's been downloaded more than 1 million times, which
holy moly
is really cool. She was recognized for her work all over the place. Good and Cheap won the 2015 IACP, which is the International Association of Culinary Professionals, which is a highly esteemed organization. Judge's Choice Award. She was on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list for food and drink. And Food and Wine and Fortune both named her one of the most innovative women in food and drink. So
amazing.
She's got some like really great, she's got chops. She's got some chops, and she wrote this really cool cookbook that is a free download. And I just think it's really a neat resource. So, yeah.
Mary, our sister, has mentioned this cookbook, which I thought was so interesting. I've had other people mention it to me before, other than Mary. Mary was the first person who told us about it, and she works. So our sister does a lot of work around food security and food sustainability. So this is totally her wheelhouse. And so I think, getting it recommended from her, if you are a person who could, use some budget-friendly meals that are delicious, this is a great resource. Or if you know someone who maybe needs this, again, it's like free to download. You can print it out or send it to someone as a link. And I think it's just a really good one to have, in your back pocket.
Yeah. So you also found some budget-friendly food blogs. What'd you find?
Yeah. So I found one Reddit thread. And so if you're not on Reddit, like there's certain places in Reddit that I do not go. It's like an online bulletin board for anybody and everybody. And some things on there are like, I could take it or leave it. But they do have some really good threads that talk about eating healthfully and cheaply.
Oh, okay.
And one of them's called Eat Cheap and Healthy. It's searchable. We'll have the link to it. You go there and it's like, what do you do if you're a person in college and don't have a microwave? How do I eat good and cheap?
Okay.
What do I do if I don't have access to XYZ? How do I hold food because I work a really long, low-wage job and I need to pack healthy lunches? Things like that. Yeah. So people ask questions that are specific to their circumstance, and people answer the questions for them. They're like, how do I cook beans? Like very basic stuff to some great recipes. I like the community aspect of that. People are really kind in there and just helpful. And so it's just kind of a cool thing. Again, not all of Reddit is like this, so I'm not liable for anywhere else you go on Reddit.
No kidding.
But this particular thread is really nice. And the other one that I thought was fun was actually the 99centchef.blogspot.com. He does some recipes that are super inexpensive and budget friendly. He also reviews like super cheap, I would almost say like gas station style food. So like, hey, what's this new release of 99-cent White Castle burgers? Are they any good? And he does little videos of them.
Okay, yeah.
And like critiques them. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like, who among us has not been in a gas station starving and been like, what of this can I eat here? Yes. So I thought that was kind of fun and an interesting one. We'll put all the links to this. We'll link to the PDF download as well as the article that we talked about. All in our show notes.
Very nice. All right, Kate, coming up next week, we have Instant Pot vegetarian recipes.
We do. So, you and I love an Instant Pot, but I realized that an Instant Pot in a lot of ways lends itself to the big roast or the quick cook chicken thigh, right?
Yeah.
But I wanted to do some recipes that really focus on vegetarians and some good recipes for them. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I saw we've got a vegetarian chili in there, and I'm super excited for that one.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so that's what's for dinner. See you next time on The Dinner Sisters. We'll save a spot at the table for you.
Would you like a little dinner in your inbox every week? Subscribe to our newsletter by going to our website at dinnersisters.com for show notes and other fun stuff. If you've got some dinner ideas, you can always shoot us an email at dinnersisterspodcast@gmail.com. Lastly, as per usual, if you like what you're hearing, please review and subscribe. Betsy and I read every review like we've won the Grammys. So we love a review. Go ahead and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love to see it. And if you really like us, tell a friend. That's how people get to know us. Thanks, and happy eating.